The story of Samir started by his escape from Egypt under the Nasser regime, when Nasser started to collect the Marxists into jail, and it happened to be that Samir's father was a doctor, a medic in Port Said, and he knew a captain of a ship that will leave to France. That was the chance. No? So he escaped on this ship and went to France 54. And 59 came out with his doctor thesis, on which the two French mentors of his, they have written about this work, that it is a milestone in the theory and in the debate internationally, that will divert the entire discussion. And I think since then it has become very common. We say centers and periphery. Every time we say centers and periphery, we have to think of Samir. That is his son, his creation, and his analysis for the first time really about the accumulation on a world scale. And that was the start. It was a very big start, but after that we started to see the significant books of Samir. After accumulation on the world scale came the unequal development, in which he has analyzed the development since the ancient times of the centers and periphery throughout history, from the very beginning, in which the world had only two centers, that was only Egypt and China, and the rest were peripheral, and then through the Middle Ages and following this and showing convincingly how revolutions, that means in this sense, how they step over from a formation, a societal formation, economic society formation, to another higher stage is coming from the periphery always. And this is a very important discovery. I don't want to repeat what have been said about Samir. He's the organic academic and so on. Yes. But he has seen his personal role in delivering the understanding, the theoretical base for the movement. And I think he succeeded in that to a wide extent, because almost all movements and parties and so on, they have lost quite a valuable time and energy and efforts to understand some problems, or to debate on some problems, which Samir could explain in a very clear way without having the disputes and so on. That was his role. To mention in that, I think all of you know the so-called Bandung period. This is one of the milestones of Samir's life, because Samir was personally involved in creating this movement during that time, that was with the parties at that time, the Egyptian and the Iraqi party, attracting or pulling Nasser at that time, and Sukarno, and Nehru, and Shwenlai, and Tito. And I think it's still until today, this very important experience of the South, the global South, no? We haven't had such a success since then. And therefore, the liberal regimes today, at least in our part of the world, they don't remember this occasion with pleasure. They just want to put it under the it doesn't exist. How do you call it? Teppich?
Carpet.
Carpet and children, yes. Yes, to mention also about Samir. Samir was almost the only person who has criticized the practices of the Soviet Union in the highest point of the history of Soviet Union, and criticized that not from the imperialist point of view, but from the left point of view, on an objective base. In the 60s, he started to write about the mistakes of the policies in a very accurate way, naming the problems as they are. And history has shown much later that he was right. And he was completely right in all what he has written in the 60s and 70s about the Soviet Union. And he has visited the Soviet Union, and later he was declared persona non grata in the Soviet Union because he was not system conform, as they expected from a left to be. I mean, many of the elderly can remember this time and how things worked at that time between the parties and the Soviet Union. Samir and all the cultural issues, especially religion and fanatism and so on, it has been mentioned many times. Samir has also written a very interesting book about Eurocentrism, on which he has made his new interpretation of historical materialism, and criticized directly the old interpretation of Stalin with the 5 stages and so on, and he made something more profound, and explained that the Eurocentrism is the father of looking at the colonialized world as if we've been inferior, and showing that the normal development of the colonialized countries could have got exactly the same development like in Europe by facts. Special position in his work was Samir and the peasants' problem worldwide. That was one of his main issues, not only in India, all over the world, and he looked at this problem from the bird's eye view, or from the cosmonaut eye view, and made and to draw our attention that following the policies of the WTO in this question will lead to a global disaster. Almost half of mankind will be disposable, and he had made the theoretical fundamental for that. It's not just agitating, but convincing why this could happen. Not only in Africa, not only in Asia, but all over the world. Last but not least, I mean, I could speak much longer about Samir, but last but not least, I call it his last project, and I have still till today an email from him just before he died with the reference SOS, giving the order to carry on this. It is the new international. It is his convenience that there is no other way. And I remember